The sound of a crying baby echoed through the marble halls of the Ricci mansion in Brooklyn Heights, a sound that had haunted Xavier Chavi Ricci for 3 weeks straight. The most feared man in New York's underworld, a man who could silence entire rooms with a single look, stood helplessly in his nursery, staring at his 6-month-old son Mattia as if the infant were a puzzle he couldn't solve. His wife Isabella was gone. Cancer had taken her swiftly, brutally, leaving him with an empire to run and a baby he didn't know how to care for. The nannies came and went. Some quit after seeing his security detail, others after witnessing late-night business meetings in his study. None lasted more than a week, but today was different. Today, a young woman with honey-colored hair and determined green eyes stood in his doorway, watching him struggle with a bottle that Mattia refused to take. She didn't flinch at the sight of his shoulder holster or the blood on his shirt cuff from his morning negotiations. Instead, Penelope Scott stepped forward and whispered the words that would change everything. "Do you need me, sir?" 3 hours earlier, Penny Scott had been cleaning office buildings in downtown Brooklyn, her third job of the day. At 24, she worked as a house cleaner, a waitress, and a night janitor, just to keep her tiny studio apartment and send money to her sick mother in Ohio. Her hands were raw from bleach, her back ached from bending over desks, and her stomach growled from skipping lunch again. She was emptying trash cans on the 15th floor when she overheard 2 women talking by the elevator. "I'm telling you, Maria, no one lasts more than a week with that family," one whispered. "The Ricci mansion in Brooklyn Heights. They're desperate for help with the baby." "Ricci?" The other woman's voice dropped, as in Xavier Ricci. "The one they call the Wolf. Are you insane? The pay is $5,000 a week cash, no questions asked." Penny's cleaning rag froze mid-wipe. $5,000. That was more than she made in 3 months. Her mother's medical bills flashed through her mind, the overdue notices, the threatening calls from the hospital. "I heard his wife died," the first woman continued. "Left him with a baby he doesn't know what to do with. They say he's going through nannies like tissues. Because he's dangerous, Elena. That man has blood on his hands." "Maybe, but that baby didn't choose his father." The elevator dinged, and their voices faded. Penny stood alone in the empty office, her heart pounding. She pulled out her cracked phone and Googled Xavier Ricci, Brooklyn Heights. The images that appeared made her breath catch, a devastatingly handsome man in expensive suits, always surrounded by men in black. Headlines screamed about federal investigations, rival families, and mysterious disappearances. But then she found the obituary. Isabella Ricci, beloved wife and new mother, died at 26 from aggressive cancer. The photo showed a beautiful woman holding a tiny baby, her smile radiant despite the shadows under her eyes. Penny closed her phone. A motherless baby. A grieving father who didn't know how to cope. She thought of her own childhood, her father leaving when she was 8, her mother working 3 jobs to keep them afloat. She knew what it felt like to be hungry, scared, and alone. 2 hours later, she stood outside the Ricci mansion, her heart hammering against her ribs. The house was a fortress, wrought iron gates, security cameras, and men in suits stationed at every corner. The mansion itself was breathtaking, a restored brownstone that screamed old money and older power. She pressed the intercom button with a trembling finger. "State your business," a gruff voice demanded. "I'm here about the nanny position." A long pause. "You got an appointment?" "No, but—" "Then you got nothing. Move along." "Please," Penny said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I know you've had trouble keeping help. I'm different. I won't run." Another pause. Then the gates buzzed open. The front door was answered by a mountain of a man with scars across his knuckles and eyes that had seen too much. "You sure about this, sweetheart? This ain't no ordinary family." "I'm sure." He led her through rooms that belonged in a museum, crystal chandeliers, oil paintings, furniture that probably cost more than her yearly rent. But as they climbed the marble staircase, she heard it, the desperate wailing of a baby. "Boss has been up for 3 days straight," the man muttered. "Kid won't stop crying, won't eat, won't sleep. We're all going crazy." They reached the nursery, and Penny's heart broke. The room was a paradise of soft blues and whites filled with every expensive toy and gadget money could buy. But in the center of it all stood a man who looked like he was drowning. Xavier Ricci was even more imposing in person. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it and olive skin that spoke of his Italian heritage. His white dress shirt was wrinkled and stained, his sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. A shoulder holster hung loose under his arm, and she could see dried blood on his shirt cuff. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Dark brown, almost black, filled with a grief so raw it made her chest ache. This wasn't the cold-blooded killer from the headlines. This was a broken man holding a baby bottle like it might explode. "Sir," the bodyguard said, "this is Penelope Scott. She's here about the nanny position." Xavier looked up, and their eyes met across the room. For a moment, the baby's cries seemed to fade. He studied her with an intensity that made her feel exposed, as if he could see every secret she'd ever kept. "You know who I am?" His voice was rough, probably from lack of sleep. "Yes." "And you're not running?" Penny looked at the crying baby, then back at him. "No, sir." Something flickered in his dark eyes. "The last 3 nannies quit before the end of their first day. One left a note saying I was morally compromised. Another called the police. I'm not them." He stepped closer and she caught his scent, expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more dangerous. "What makes you different, Penelope Scott?" The way he said her name, with that slight Italian accent curling around the syllables, sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "I know what it's like to be hungry, to be scared, to need someone who won't leave." His jaw tightened. "I'm not a good man." "Maybe not, but that baby needs someone who won't give up on him." For a long moment, they stared at each other while Mattia continued to cry. Then Xavier held out the bottle, his hand shaking slightly. "He won't take it. Won't take anything. I don't know what I'm doing wrong." Penny stepped forward, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. "May I?" He nodded and she took the bottle, then gently lifted Mattia from his arms. The baby was beautiful, dark hair like his father's, but with his mother's delicate features. She cradled him against her chest, humming softly as she offered the bottle. "Sometimes they just need to feel safe," she murmured, not looking at Xavier, but feeling his intense gaze on her face. Slowly, miraculously, Mattia began to drink. The silence that followed was profound. Xavier stared at them, this stranger who had walked into his nightmare and somehow made it better, with nothing but gentle hands and a soft voice. "Do you need me, sir?" Penny whispered, still focused on the baby. Xavier's breath caught. Those words, so simple, so honest, hit him like a physical blow. When was the last time someone had asked what he needed instead of what he could give them? "Yes," he said, his voice barely audible. "God help me, yes." Penny's first week at the Ricci mansion was like living in a beautiful, dangerous dream. Her room was larger than her entire studio apartment, with a view of the Brooklyn Bridge that took her breath away every morning. But it was the glimpses into Xavier's world that truly amazed her. She watched him conduct business from his study, men in expensive suits coming and going at all hours, speaking in code about shipments and territories. His voice would change during these meetings, becoming cold and commanding, the voice of a man who expected absolute obedience. But then he'd come upstairs to check on Mattia, and she'd see his shoulders relax, his expression soften. "You're good with him," Xavier said one evening, finding her in the nursery giving Mattia his bottle. It was past midnight, but the baby had been fussy, and Penny didn't mind the late feeding. "He's a sweet baby. He just misses his mother." Xavier's jaw tightened at the mention of Isabella. "The doctors said she might not wake up from the surgery. She made me promise to take care of him if something happened. You are taking care of him. I'm paying someone else to take care of him. There's a difference." Penny looked up from the baby to study Xavier's face. He was leaning against the doorframe, still in his dress shirt and slacks from whatever business he'd been conducting. There was exhaustion in every line of his body, but also something else, guilt. "You think you're failing him." It wasn't a question, and Xavier's sharp intake of breath told her she'd hit the mark. "I don't know how to be a father," he admitted, his voice rough. "I know how to run an organization. I know how to make people fear me, but this—" He gestured helplessly at the nursery. "Isabella was supposed to teach me. You don't learn to be a parent from books or lessons," Penny said softly. "You learn by doing, by being there, by not giving up when it gets hard." "Like you did?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" "Your father. He left when you were young." Penny's hands stilled on the bottle. She hadn't told him about her childhood. "How do you—" "I had you investigated before I hired you. Standard procedure." His dark eyes were unreadable. "Thomas Scott, construction worker, disappeared when you were 8. Left your mother with nothing but debt and a daughter to raise alone." Heat flooded Penny's cheeks. Of course he'd investigated her. She was naive to think otherwise. "Then you know why I won't quit. Because you know what it's like to be abandoned. Because I know what it's like to need someone who stays." Something shifted in Xavier's expression, a crack in the armor he wore so carefully. "Isabella used to say that. She said everyone needs someone who stays. She sounds like she was wise. She was everything I didn't deserve." His voice was barely a whisper. "Beautiful, kind, pure. She saw something in me that I'm not sure was ever really there. Maybe she saw who you could be." Xavier pushed off from the doorframe and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "I've done terrible things, Penelope. Things that would make you run if you knew. Then don't tell me." He turned, surprise flickering across his features. "What?" "I didn't come here to judge your past. I came here to help with your son." She stood, settling the now sleeping Mattia in his crib. "Whatever you've done, whoever you were before, that's between you and God. All I care about is that baby sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks." For a long moment, they stood in the soft glow of the nightlight, the only sound Mattia's gentle breathing. Xavier studied her face as if trying to solve a puzzle. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who would either worship me or fear me. You do neither." Penny met his gaze steadily. "Should I? Most people do. I'm not most people." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "No, you're not." The moment was broken by the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Marco, Xavier's right-hand man, appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we got a problem. The Torino family is making moves on our territory in Red Hook." Xavier's entire demeanor changed. The vulnerable man who'd been sharing his fears vanished, replaced by the cold, calculating leader she'd heard about. "How many men?" "6 that we can see. Probably more." "Get the cars ready. Call Nico and tell him to meet us there with backup." "You got it, boss." As Marco disappeared, Xavier turned back to Penny. The transformation was startling. His eyes had gone flat and dangerous, his jaw set in hard lines. "I have to go." "Will you be safe?" The question seemed to surprise him. "Why do you care?" "Because Mattia needs his father." Something flickered in his dark eyes. "And you, do you need anything?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to explore. Penny's heart hammered against her ribs as she looked at this dangerous, complicated man who was slowly becoming more than just her employer. "Just come home safe," she whispered. Xavier stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "You realize what you're getting into staying here? This life, this world, it's not safe. People who get close to me tend to get hurt. Is that a warning or a threat?" "It's the truth." Penny lifted her chin, meeting his intense gaze. "Then I guess it's a good thing I'm not easily scared." For a moment, she thought he might reach for her. His hand twitched at his side and his eyes dropped to her lips. But then he stepped back, the professional distance sliding back into place. "Lock the doors after I leave. Don't open them for anyone but Marco or me." "How will I know it's really you?" Xavier paused at the doorway, a genuine smile breaking across his face for the first time since she'd met him. "I'll ask if you need me." After he left, Penny stood in the quiet nursery, her heart racing. She was falling for him, this dangerous, broken man who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. It was foolish, reckless, and completely inevitable. Outside, She heard the roar of expensive engines as Xavier and his men disappeared into the Brooklyn night. She whispered a prayer for his safety, then settled into the rocking chair to wait for his return. She was beginning to understand that in Xavier Ricci's world, every goodbye might be the last. Xavier returned at dawn with blood on his knuckles and fire in his eyes. Penny was in the kitchen making coffee when she heard the front door slam, followed by the heavy sound of his footsteps on the marble floor. "Penny?" His voice echoed through the mansion, rough with exhaustion and something else. Relief. "In here," she called softly, not wanting to wake Mattia. He appeared in the doorway and her breath caught. His white shirt was torn and stained, his dark hair disheveled. There was a cut above his left eyebrow and bruises forming along his jaw, but he was alive and that was all that mattered. "You're hurt," she said, setting down her coffee mug. "It's nothing. Sit down. Penny, sit down." Her voice carried an authority that surprised them both. Xavier's eyebrows rose, but he obeyed, settling onto one of the kitchen bar stools. Penny wet a clean dish towel and approached him carefully, as if he were a wounded animal that might bolt. "This might sting," she warned, gently dabbing at the cut above his eyebrow. Xavier hissed, but didn't pull away. Up close, she could see the exhaustion etched in every line of his face, the weight of responsibility that never left his shoulders. "What happened?" she asked quietly. "The Torinos thought they could muscle in on our operations. They were wrong." "Are they alive?" "Most of them." His dark eyes met hers. "Does that bother you?" Penny continued cleaning his wounds, her touch gentle but sure. "I told you, I'm not here to judge. Even if I told you I put 3 men in the hospital tonight. Did they deserve it?" The question seemed to surprise him. "What kind of answer are you looking for?" "An honest one." Xavier was quiet for a long moment, studying her face as she worked. "They threatened my family, my business, my son. So yes, they deserved it." "Then I'm glad you're the one who came home." Something shifted in Xavier's expression. His hand came up to cover hers, stilling her movements. "You mean that?" "Yes." "Why?" Penny's heart hammered as she looked into his dark eyes. "Because Mattia needs you. Because you're trying to be better than you were. Because—" She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Because what?" "Because I care about you," she whispered. The admission hung between them like a live wire. Xavier's thumb traced across her knuckles, his touch sending electricity up her arm. "You shouldn't. Too late. Penny." His voice was rough, warning. "I know what you're going to say, that this is dangerous, that I don't understand your world, that I should run while I still can. You should, but I won't." Xavier stood abruptly, forcing her to step back. He began pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. "You don't understand. The Torinos. Tonight was just the beginning. They'll come back, and when they do, they'll target everything I care about. Then protect it. I'm trying to." He spun to face her, his eyes blazing. "Don't you see? That's why I can't. Why we can't." "Can't what?" "This." He gestured between them. "Whatever this is becoming." Penny stepped closer, her chin lifted defiantly. "And what is it becoming, Xavier?" He stared at her for a long moment, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "Something that could get you killed." "I'm not afraid." "You should be. I'm not a good man, Penny. I've killed people. I've destroyed lives. You've also saved your son. You've given me a job when I was desperate. You've shown me kindness when you didn't have to. That doesn't erase what I've done. No, but it shows who you're choosing to be now." Xavier's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You see me as some kind of hero, but I'm not. I'm the villain in everyone else's story. Not in mine." The words hit him like a physical blow. He stared at her, this brave, stubborn woman who refused to see him as the monster he knew himself to be. "Penny." Tell me you don't feel it too," she challenged. "Tell me there's nothing between us and I'll go back to just being the nanny, but don't lie to me." For a moment, she thought he might deny it. Then he crossed the kitchen in 3 quick strides and cupped her face in his hands. "I feel it," he said roughly. "God help me. I feel it every time you look at me, every time you touch my son, Every time you smile like you actually believe I might be worth saving. You are worth saving. Am I? His thumbs traced her cheekbones. Or am I just going to destroy you like I destroy everything else? There's only one way to find out. Xavier's eyes dropped to her lips, and she could see the war raging inside him. Desire battling with duty, want fighting with wisdom. If I kiss you, he said quietly, there's no going back. You'll be mine and I'll be yours, and that makes you a target for every enemy I have. Then we'll face them together. Penny, kiss me, Xavier. He groaned, a sound of surrender and desire, and then his lips were on hers. The kiss was everything she'd imagined and more, desperate, hungry, full of weeks of suppressed longing. His hands tangled in her hair as he pulled her closer, and she could taste the danger on his lips, the darkness that surrounded his world. But she could also taste something else. Hope. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Xavier rested his forehead against hers. You're mine now, he said, his voice rough with possession. Do you understand what that means? Tell me. It means I'll kill anyone who tries to hurt you. It means you'll never want for anything. It means I'll move heaven and earth to keep you safe. And what do you want from me? Xavier's dark eyes searched hers. Everything. Your heart, your body, your soul. I want it all. Then take it. He kissed her again, softer this time but no less intense. When they broke apart, the sound of Mattia crying drifted down from upstairs. Duty calls, Penny said with a smile. We're not finished with this conversation, Xavier warned. I'm counting on it. As she headed upstairs to tend to the baby, Penny felt Xavier's eyes on her. She'd crossed a line tonight, stepped fully into his dangerous world. But as she lifted Mattia from his crib and felt the baby settle contentedly in her arms, she knew she'd made the right choice. She was exactly where she belonged. 3 weeks later, Penny's world shattered with a single phone call. She was feeding Mattia his morning bottle when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made her answer. Is this Penelope Scott? The voice was crisp, professional. Yes. This is Dr. Martinez from Ohio General Hospital. I'm calling about your mother, Patricia Scott. Penny's blood turned to ice. What's wrong? She's been admitted to the ICU. Her condition has deteriorated rapidly. I think you should come as soon as possible. The bottle slipped from Penny's nerveless fingers, formula spilling across the nursery floor. Mattia began to fuss, but the sound seemed to come from far away. How long does she have? Penny whispered. It's hard to say. Maybe days, maybe hours. The phone fell from her hand as she sank into the rocking chair, Mattia still in her arms. Her mother was dying. The woman who had sacrificed everything to raise her alone, who had worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat, who had never once complained about the hand life had dealt them. Penny? Xavier's voice came from the doorway. He'd been getting ready for a meeting, dressed in a charcoal suit that made his dark eyes even more intense. What's wrong? She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. My mother. She's dying. Xavier was across the room in an instant, kneeling beside the chair and taking her free hand in both of his. Tell me. Through broken sobs, she explained about the call, about her mother's cancer that had been in remission but had apparently returned with a vengeance. I have to go to her, Penny said. I have to, but Mattia. We'll be fine, Xavier said firmly. I'll arrange for a temporary nanny. No, you don't understand. The last 3 nannies were not you. His hands cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Go to your mother. I'll handle everything here. Xavier, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm telling you. His voice brooked no argument. Marco will drive you to the airport. My jet will take you to Ohio. Whatever your mother needs, the best doctors, experimental treatments, anything, it's yours. I can't let you pay for... You can and you will. His thumb wiped away her tears. You're mine, Penny. That means your family is my family. Your problems are my problems. But what if she doesn't want help from someone like you? Xavier's jaw tightened. Someone like me. Someone dangerous. Someone who loves her daughter. The words hung in the air between them. Xavier's eyes widened slightly, as if he hadn't meant to say them. but he didn't take them back. "Xavier, go," he said roughly, "before I change my mind and keep you here where you're safe." 2 hours later, Penny was on Xavier's private jet, watching Brooklyn disappear beneath the clouds. Her heart was breaking. For her mother, for leaving Mattia, for the look in Xavier's eyes when she'd walked out the door. Ohio General Hospital was a far cry from the luxury she'd grown accustomed to in Brooklyn. The halls smelled of disinfectant and despair, and her mother's room was small and sterile. But Patricia Scott's face lit up when she saw her daughter, even though the cancer had ravaged her body. "Penny, sweetheart, you came." "Of course I came." Penny took her mother's frail hand, shocked by how thin she'd become. "Why didn't you tell me it was this bad?" "I didn't want to worry you. You said you found a good job, and I didn't want to ruin that." "Nothing is more important than you." They talked for hours, about Penny's childhood, about her father who'd left them, about dreams and regrets and love. Her mother drifted in and out of consciousness, but during her lucid moments she peppered Penny with questions about her new life. "This family you work for," Patricia said during one of these moments, "tell me about them." Penny hesitated. How could she explain Xavier? How could she tell her dying mother that she'd fallen in love with a man who killed people for a living? "The father lost his wife," she said carefully. "He's raising his son alone. It's complicated. You care about him." It wasn't a question. Patricia had always been able to read her daughter like a book. "Yes. And he cares about you?" Penny thought about Xavier's hands on her face, his promise to move heaven and earth to keep her safe. "Yes." "Then why do you look so sad when you talk about him?" "Because he's not. He's not a good man, Mom. He's done terrible things." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know why your father left?" The change of subject surprised Penny. "Because he couldn't handle the responsibility." "No, sweetheart. He left because he was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of not being good enough for us. Of failing us. Of becoming the kind of man his own father was." Patricia's eyes were clear and focused. "Some men run from their darkness. Others fight it every day. The question is, which kind of man is he?" Before Penny could answer, her phone buzzed with a text from Xavier. "How is she?" "Not good," Penny typed back. "The doctors say maybe a day or two. I'm sorry, Mattia misses you, so do I." "How is he?" "Crying. A lot. Turns out you spoiled us both." Despite everything, Penny smiled. "I'll be home soon. Take all the time you need. I love you." The words on the screen blurred as tears filled her eyes. He loved her. This dangerous, complicated man loved her. "He's the kind who fights," she whispered to her mother. Patricia smiled. "Then hold on to him, sweetheart. Good men who fight their demons are rare." That night, Patricia Scott passed away peacefully in her sleep, her daughter's hand in hers. Penny sat beside the bed for a long time, numb with grief. Her mother was gone. The woman who had been her anchor, her strength, her everything, gone. Her phone rang. Xavier. "Penny, how are you holding up?" "She's gone," Penny whispered. Silence. Then, "I'm coming to get you." "Xavier, no, you can't leave Mattia. Marco's wife is watching him. I'm already in the car. It's a 6-hour drive. Then I'll be there in 4. "Xavier, you're not alone, Penny. You'll never be alone again. Do you understand me?" Through her tears, she smiled. "Yes, I love you. I love you too." As she hung up, Penny realized her mother had been right. Xavier was the kind of man who fought his demons, and now he was fighting for her too. Xavier arrived at the hospital as the sun was rising, looking like he'd driven through hell to get there. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and there was a wild look in his dark eyes that spoke of desperation and relief. "Penny." He crossed the waiting room in 3 quick strides and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "You came," she whispered against his chest. "Did you think I wouldn't?" She pulled back to look at him, this dangerous man who had driven 6 hours through the night just to hold her while she grieved. "What about your meeting? Your business? Nothing matters more than you." The simple words broke something open inside her chest. She collapsed against him, finally letting herself cry. For her mother, for the years of struggle, for the overwhelming relief of not being alone. Xavier held her through it all, his hands stroking her hair, his voice murmuring soft reassurances in Italian. When the storm finally passed, he cupped her face in his hands. "Tell me what you need." "I need to go home," she said. "I need to see Mattia. I need—" "What?" "You. I need you." Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. "You have me. Always." The funeral was small. Just Penny, Xavier, and a handful of her mother's friends. Xavier stood beside her at the graveside, his presence a solid anchor in her sea of grief. When the service ended, he took her hand and led her to a quiet spot under an old oak tree. "Your mother would have liked this place," he said, looking out over the rolling hills of the cemetery. "How do you know?" "Because it's peaceful. Because it's beautiful. Because it's worthy of someone who raised a daughter like you." Penny's eyes filled with tears again. She would have liked you too. "Even knowing what I am? Especially knowing what you are." She turned to face him fully. "She told me that good men who fight their demons are rare." She was right. Xavier was quiet for a long moment. "I want to be the man you see when you look at me." "You already are." "No, I'm not. But I'm trying." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was going to wait, plan something elaborate, romantic, but standing here, in this place where your mother is laid to rest, it feels right to ask." Penny's breath caught as he dropped to one knee. "Penelope Scott, he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You walked into my life when I was drowning. You saved my son. You saved me. You made me believe that maybe I could be more than the sum of my sins." He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring that caught the afternoon sunlight. "Marry me. Not because it's practical or safe or smart. Marry me because I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. Marry me because I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of the faith you have in me." Through her tears, Penny saw the vulnerability in his dark eyes, the fear that she might say no. This powerful man who commanded respect and fear from everyone else was laying his heart bare for her. "Yes," she whispered. Relief flooded his features as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. "Yes?" he repeated, standing and pulling her into his arms. "Yes, Xavier Ricci. I'll marry you." He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "We should go home," he said. "Mattia needs his mother." The word hit Penny like a physical blow. "Mother, if you'll have him, if you'll have us. Xavier, I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but that little boy loves you and you love him. I see it every time you look at him. Of course I love him, but his real mother—" "Is gone," Xavier said gently. "Isabella is gone and she's never coming back. But you're here. You're real. And you love him like he's your own." Penny thought about Mattia's sweet face, his tiny hands reaching for her, the way he settled so peacefully in her arms. "I do love him." "Then be his mother. Be my wife. Be part of this family we're building from the broken pieces of our past." "What about your world, the danger?" Xavier's jaw tightened. "I'll protect you both. Whatever it takes. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll try to find a way out. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. Promise me you'll try to build something legitimate for Mattia to inherit." Xavier was quiet for a long moment, considering her words. "It won't be easy. There are obligations, loyalties. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for possible. For you? For him? I'll find a way." They flew back to Brooklyn that evening, and Penny's heart lifted when she saw the mansion's lights twinkling in the distance. Home. Somehow, this dangerous, beautiful place had become home. Marco met them at the door, his usually stoic expression showing relief. "Boss, thank God you're back. The kid's been screaming for hours. My wife's about ready to quit." They found Mattia in his nursery, red-faced and furious, while Marco's wife paced the floor looking frazzled. "Oh, thank goodness," the woman said when she saw them. "I don't know what's wrong with him. He won't eat, won't sleep, just cries." Penny crossed to them and gently took Mattia from the woman's arms. The baby's cries immediately quieted to soft hiccups as he snuggled against her chest. "He missed his mama," Xavier said softly, watching them with an expression of pure love. "Mama," Penny repeated, testing the word. It felt right. Perfect. "Welcome home," Xavier said, wrapping his arms around both of them. As they stood there in the soft glow of the nursery, Penny realized that her mother had been right about something else. Sometimes the most beautiful things grew from the darkest soil. Her love for Xavier, their little family, this new life they were building together. It had all grown from loss and pain and the courage to hope for something better. "Do you need me, sir?" she asked, echoing the words that had started it all. Xavier's smile was radiant. "Always." Outside, Brooklyn glittered in the darkness, full of danger and possibility, but inside the Ricci mansion, a new family had been born, built on love, forgiveness, and the unshakable belief that even the darkest hearts could find redemption in the light of unconditional love. 2 years later. Penny Ricci stood on the terrace of their new home in the Hamptons, watching her husband push their son on the swing set he'd installed last month. Mattia's delighted squeals filled the air as Xavier made airplane noises, his expensive suit jacket long since discarded. "Higher, Papa, higher." "Any higher and you'll reach the moon, Piccolo," Xavier laughed, but he pushed harder anyway. Penny's hand moved instinctively to her rounded belly, where their second child grew. A daughter, the ultrasound had revealed. Xavier had cried when they found out. This dangerous man reduced to tears by the thought of a little girl with her mother's green eyes. The legitimate businesses were thriving. Xavier had kept his promise, slowly transitioning away from the darker aspects of his empire. It hadn't been easy. There had been threats, violence, moments when Penny feared they wouldn't survive. But they had. Together. "Mama," Mattia called out, waving enthusiastically. "Look how high I go." "I see, baby, you're flying." Xavier caught her eye over their son's head and smiled, that devastating smile that still made her heart skip. He'd changed so much from the broken man she'd first met. The shadows were still there, probably always would be, but they no longer defined him. "Do you need me, sir?" she called out, their old joke now a cherished ritual. "Always," he called back, his voice carrying across the garden. As the sun set over Long Island, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Penny reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a desperate woman cleaning offices to the wife of a reformed crime boss, mother to a beautiful boy and another child on the way. Sometimes salvation came in the most unexpected forms. Sometimes it whispered, "Do you need me, sir?" and changed everything forever.